This is, for me, a bit of deja vu. When I started my career in the early 70s, I had read a book by E.F. Schumacher called Small is Beautiful. And he was an economist, development economist in the UK. And the book basically said, big-scale technologies that were developed in the West weren't suitable for developing world situations, and that we needed to solve that problem, you needed to get people out into communities, perhaps engineers and others, and develop small-scale maintenance technologies that they could maintain, they could use, they needed to solve their direct problems. And the hopeful idea was, of course, the energy could lift them over time out of their poverty in all the ways that have been discussed here. And I remember meeting Hunter when I was at the beginning of my career at the National Center for Appropriate Technology in 1979, when her and her former husband came and spoke to us about some of these issues as it relates to the United States, in which we were engaged. But over time, I've had a career that I've worked at all levels, the community level, building solar greenhouses and breadbox hot water heaters, to working with the Secretary General on what to do on a global basis. And so it's deja vu in coming back to this issue when I spent so much of my career on energy efficiency, to come back to the crux of the important issue of energy access. During this week, I've talked to my neighbors, people that live around me. I did not meet one person that knew that there is 1.6 billion people without electricity in the world. Most of them are appalled. And when I said energy access, no one knew what I was talking about. I had to go through and explain it all to them. These are normal people, not energy people or development people. So that is a big need. We believe we also need to establish a millennium goal. And this is, we believe, very important, because energy, as we know, is the one issue that can lift people out of poverty. You can get clean drinking water, but that's probably not going to lift you out of poverty. You can be healthy, but that's not going to lift you out of poverty. You've got to have all those, and you have to have energy. So it is the key to development. We believe there needs to be this partnership, and we propose that the UN, instead of thinking in terms of it delivering, serve as the organizer of a global collaborative of all the energy efficiency, clean energy groups around the world to deliver to the access clean energy to the world. That is a role that needs to be done. And it also in terms of deploying best practice. So that is my little talk, but in sitting here, and I thought the discussion was really good, I want to give one example of where I've been involved, and I've worked on international development issues for 15 years, maybe 20. And believe me, as anybody in this room, I've had plenty of failures. I had Leonid Kuchma, president of Ukraine. We got him to pass a directive to change laws. And 2 months later, the parliament overturned him. So that was, spent a year on that one. Whoops, didn't work. The one I did that did work, and I think serves as a great example of integration, is the creation of the Ghana Energy Foundation. And I want to tell you a little story to illustrate how I think developing world governments really need to step up to the plate and begin the process. And if you do, big things can happen. The World Bank started it. Ghana had an energy ministry that did two things. They regulated energy prices, and they delivered energy conservation services, audits, et cetera. Well, they raised the prices of energy because there's a big drought in Ghana, and there's a dam, and there wasn't enough electricity, and the U.S. aluminum industry has first dibs on all the power at about 1 cent a kilowatt hour. So there were brownouts and blackouts and that sort of thing. So they had to raise the prices. Well, you can imagine when the energy efficiency people went out to the companies, they were since they were from the ministry, they were about the last people those companies wanted to see or to divulge any information. So the World Bank supported the spinning off of the energy efficiency government unit into a foundation, an operating foundation. And they began immediately to lay out a plan. And today, they have a strong, comprehensive program. They're delivering photovoltaics and compact fluorescents and low-cost computers to villages. They're doing audits of industry and created ESCOs to deliver. They are doing a range of new construction projects. They've adopted codes and standards. The list kind of goes on and on. But it is an institution whose goal, outside the government, whose goal is to develop access and productivity to Ghana. And you'd say, well, where'd they get all the money for that? Well, if you set up an institution like that and begin and have good people in it, they market themselves. They've marketed themselves. I know the banks give supported loans because they get a decent proposal from them. They know the place can be effective. Until we come to grips with the reality that in countries you got to have somebody who can deliver, our efforts are going to be really difficult to have success. And I guess lastly, I want to say a bit just about, in consideration of this integration and to sort of support our last speaker. In those really poor countries, it's going to be really a challenge. But in the range of other countries, and there's a lot of them, there's more than 100 of countries in between, we need to focus on the delivery, on the creation of new business models to deliver efficiency to scale. And John pointed out the change of a business model of the utility industry. If you look at the World Bank projections about investment in power sector investment over the next 20 years, there's going to be a lot of money go out for investment in power sector. If you change the incentives, that money can be used for efficiency, clean energy, access. And lastly, just the whole role of co-ops. I think it's probably one of the most underutilized tools we have. Rural America got power, one, by the obligations served of electric utilities, so they had to serve everybody, and the development of co-ops. Agriculture co-ops are all over the world, and this is a really, in my opinion, an untapped resource to provide for that integration where you bring in, where the co-op begins to deal with decisions on energy issues and bringing energy to people.